Welcome to the Know It's Some podcast, bringing you the widest variety of conversational interviews for a well-rounded perspective on life. Because while it's true, nobody likes a know-it-all, it's also good to know it's some. Here's your host, Steve Platt.
That's right, I'm Steve Platt, and you're listening to the Know It's Some podcast, a proud affiliate of the Big 3 Roll-Up Network. Welcome back to all of our weekly listeners who follow or subscribe to the show. And if you're a first-time listener, thanks for checking us out. Be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button. In fact, go ahead and do that right now before you forget so you don't miss an episode. And if you like the show, please do us a favor. Hit that 5-star ranking on Apple or iTunes. Leave us a review if you haven't done so already. Doing so helps us to continue to book interesting guests week after week. It's really the best way to support the show. Another way to support the show would be to follow us on social media at Know It Some Pod on all social media platforms. That's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Know It Some Pod. Like the post, share them, and help us continue to grow awareness of this podcast so we can keep bringing you incredible interviews. And this week's, I'm going to give you the intro, but it is one that if I gave you the full intro, I'd be here for over an hour. I'd miss half of the stuff that this guy has done or is doing because he moves that fast. He's such a hard worker, such an incredible guy. I can't wait to share the interview with you. So let me just hit the highlights if I can and tell you that he is a man whose phone number your favorite athletes all have on speed dial. And you've seen his work. It's everything from Nike basketball shoes to Adidas cleats. It's Marcus Rivero. He is the artist and designer behind Souls by Sir. That's Souls by Sir. You've seen it. He brings color and design and powerful messages to the feet of all the biggest athletes that you love. He's worked with the likes of Marshawn Lynch and Drew Brees, Conor McGregor, Dwayne Wade, Tom Brady, Ronald Acuna Jr. That's just naming a few. The list goes on, and you can see it all on his Instagram page at Souls by Sir, SOLESBYSIR, Souls by Sir on Instagram. Check it out. He's also partnered with some of the world's biggest brands. We're talking like Adidas and company, right? And he's done it still sticking to his patented one-of-one uniqueness. He's built his company literally from the ground up. And now he's branched out. He's collaborating with business titans like Microsoft and Marcus Lemonis, bringing his talents to products like Surface tablets and handbags. And no matter how big Marcus or Souls by Sir gets, I know that he'll always stay true to himself and his high standards for quality. He's that kind of guy, just real humble, great guy. We had a wonderful conversation. He told some crazy stories that we're about to hear, and I think we barely scratched the surface. This man works harder than anyone I know, and he doesn't have a pause button, folks. So we'll have to bring him back again someday to share some more stories with us. But for now, enjoy. Please welcome my good friend, Marcus Rivero. Hey, Marcus, welcome to the Know It's Some pod.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So I noticed you have a lot of different projects going on, and it seems like, there's like clones of you to get all this stuff done. Have you always had this kind of like entrepreneurial spirit thing going on?
It's crazy, man. I wish there was clones. Yeah, I've always been a entrepreneur since a young age. I've always liked starting stuff from nothing. And going way back when in high school, I remember my first company I ever started was selling sandwiches in the hallways.
So selling sandwiches to other students?
Yeah, so it's crazy. It started off, went to an all guys high school. We didn't have lunch till like late in the afternoon. I would say like 12:30 or 1. So, growing boys, we were starving. So I was trying to figure out a way to figure out that demand. So I started making Cuban sandwiches on Cuban bread. And sure enough, after about a week, I was like, well, I can't do this by myself. So I started hiring people, my fellow football players. And long story short, that company, I had it all through high school, had 15 employees, 2 teachers, a janitor on payroll, and grandma, I'd pay her to make the stuff. And I never missed a day of high school because it was too expensive for me to miss.
That's crazy to have employees working for you. You take down the catering company, they can't handle the competition.
It was wild. Yeah, man.
That's nuts. So that explains, the entrepreneurial side of everything, but getting into what you do now. So for the listeners, you're the face behind the Souls by Sir brand. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So that started off from what I can, from what I can tell from shoes and sneakers. Now it's venturing into so much more than just that. How did that come about? When did you find that you had the talent to custom paint and design shoes?
Man, it was honestly an accident turned career. It was a pure accident. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I did a lot of like learning on the job and fake it till you make it type of scenarios. I had no clue. I really, to be honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I'll figure it out on the way. I'll figure it out on the way. And sure enough, you hit enough dead ends, you eventually find a street that goes through. And it's kind of just, it's been a passion of mine. I slowly but surely realized that it's one of these things that I'm so glad that I ended up doing now 10 years ago.
Yeah. So for me, I would just imagine that at first, you're not sure like if you're having the right materials, if it's gonna hold up, because a lot of these athletes play some sports where the gear gets beat up a little bit. I'm thinking football, baseball. The laundry looks rough. I can only imagine what the shoes look like. So, for you to make sure that these shoes that you've designed that they're actually functional, that they can actually hold up and not look torn apart after a game. Was that ever a concern?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it almost led to me never becoming opening the company sold by Sir. Like when I first started, my first athlete that reached out to me was a guy by the name of Nolan Carroll, and he played for the Dolphins at the time. And
DB, yeah.
yeah, DB, yeah, I had done
Mhm.
a pair of sneakers for him. He was my first like pro client. And when he reached out a couple months later to do his game shoes, I remember telling him no. And I was so worried, exactly what you just spoke about. Man, with sneakers, you can be very careful how you walk, if people run you over, et cetera, et cetera. But in a football game, the last thing you're worrying about is your cleats. So I remember telling him no because I didn't want the paint to fall off or it to get, look weird. And that guy literally changed my life because he called me
Mhm.
7 straight nights, and I told him no the first 6. And it's funny now because I look back and we're best of friends now. And he's like, and I always tell him, I was like, man, had you just called someone else, like I would never be where I'm at today. He's like, I knew after the first pair of shoes you did for me that I was not gonna not get you to do it for me. I just would have kept calling you until you told me yes. And it's wild, man, because at the beginning I was so scared. I remember like, man, this is my only client. I can't mess this up. If I mess this up, it's never gonna, nothing's ever gonna come of this.
Right.
And I was so freaked out. And sure enough, I mean, it worked itself out. It was fine. I learned a lot along the way, but never making a big enough mistake where it was like, oh man, like the paint came off or the shoe fell apart. Nothing like that.
Well, I mean, you hear about people opening doors, right? But like he pushed you through a door, basically. Like
Oh
he
man,
opened it for you and like walked you through the door.
no, he literally, it's wild, man. He literally, had it not been for him, because the thing is, like, even rewinding this, like, the story a little bit. So when I did that shoe for him,
Hmm.
after the 7th night, when I finally told him yes, I literally said, man, you know what? I'm not even going to charge you no for this, because if it doesn't work, he's like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to repay if this works out, I'm going to repay this favor to you.
Right.
So, after 7 nights, I finally end up doing it. He's my only client at the time. So I do the shoe, I ship it to him. And then the plan was, it was about to be preseason game 1.
Hmm.
And anybody who follows football and the people who don't, the way it works is, the starters don't really play a lot the first 2 games until the third preseason game. And then they play like half the game.
Right.
So our plan was, all right, let's see how it holds up 1, 2, and 3. And after that third game, that will at least have given it almost a full game's worth of wear. So I
Hmm.
remember like going to the game, and then after the game, I'm waiting for that dreadful phone call. And he calls me, and I'm on the way home with my parents, and he's like, hey, Mark, the shoes are perfect. So I was like super relieved. I was like, all right, great. He's like, I'm going to send you a box of 12 pairs. So I'll get super excited. He sends me the pair the next day. So again, he's my only client. So I start working on these bad boys and
Hmm.
completely forgetting the whole time that he, that favor that, I didn't think much of it. So I'm here doing it, and then I'm getting ready to to deliver. I'm like, hey Nolan, give me your address. I'll meet up with you, so I could do the whole social media thing, take a photo, etc. My first big
Right.
client.
Yeah.
So he tells me, no man, I want you to ship them. And I remember getting like, oh man, really? I was like, no. He's like, I want you to ship them. And I was like, all right. He goes, remember that favor I promised you? And I was like, yeah, man, thanks so much for this work. I really appreciate it. He's like,
Thinking
no,
that the business is the favor.
that's what I thought it was. I was like, man, this, it's a couple $1,000. And I was like, man, this is great. And he goes, no, the favor's not that. The favor's where you're about to ship this. So I get all excited. I remember I lived in Brick all the time, and I ran to the FedEx station. I ship them out overnight. He gets them. What the favor was that he had me ship it to the Dolphins training facility.
Right.
And the way it works with football guys and most sports guys in general, they get their packages but in their locker.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kids with a lot of money. So just keep that in mind. Like when these other kids in the locker room see this kid opening up this huge box, they want to know what's in it.
Yeah, what does
So
Santa bring him?
exactly. And then the thing is, he had sent me a pair of shoes that was only available in black. You couldn't find it any other color, not white, not anything.
Okay.
So the only instruction Noel had given me was, hey, make them dolphin colors. I was like, all right, cool. So I made literally 12 variations of it. So when he opened up this box, Nolan's a size 12, which is a very common size in the NFL. Long story short, everybody went wild for it. He had no intention of doing this, but he sold like 10 of the pairs. He had no, but they were just throwing money at him. So he calls me and he's like, hey, listen, I'm so sorry, Mark. He's like, look, like people are going crazy. They bought the shoes. I sold for like 5,000-6,000. The money's all yours. I don't even want it. But I hope you don't mind. I gave your cell phone number out to everybody who asked.
I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember one of the first phone calls I got was a Cam Wake. I literally had 10 guys by the next day at noon call me. And that's how the whole career started. So Nolan is the reason for the season. There's no way. There's no Souls by Sir without Nolan Carroll.
No, and he understood business. He understood what it meant for you to ship that there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he knew exactly what he was doing for you, and that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that did it without wanting anything. He just genuinely did it because he appreciated what I was doing for him, and he was very thankful, and he was just a very humble guy that like I said, to this day we're like best of friends.
That's really incredible. I mean, he helped change your life in a number of ways, not just for the success of your company, which has been incredible to watch over the last 10 years, but even just from a fan perspective, because you grew up in South Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a South Florida guy, you played football in high school. I'm imagining you were a Dolphins fan, yes?
I was a diehard Miami fan, Miami Dolphins. Every Miami team, but Miami football to me was my first love. So yeah, I was a diehard Dolphin fan. So the fact he played for Miami was just like, you couldn't have written a better story for me.
No, not at all. And so over the last 10 years, once you started getting more people interested in your work, more people seeing your work, I'm guessing there's a lot of word of mouth that goes on there. Between the athletes.
Oh yeah, most of it. I mean, I never really advertised. Most of it was word of mouth, and it's kind of like once you're in that circle, your name gets spread, like wildfire. Especially if you do good work and you're reliable. So it's basically been one of these things where Nolan played for Miami. I got all the teammates. Nolan goes and plays for Philadelphia. He takes me and my customs with him. So now his new teammates want to know about me, and then the teammate on that team got cut and got picked up by Seattle. He took me with him. And then all of a sudden, Marshawn Lynch, it just started bouncing.
I feel like I'm doing COVID contact tracing with this. This is like,
basically.
That's a good virus to spread, though.
It was amazing.
That's awesome. So sometimes that forest fire can hop across a road to another forest. You don't just do football, right? I mean, I've seen you do now a number of different athletes across different sports. I've seen you do some basketball, some baseball. Is it true that you did work for Conor McGregor?
I did. That was another wild experiment. Yeah, like you said, it bounced from basketball. I mean, I'm sorry, from football to baseball to basketball. And the Conor McGregor story was straight out of like a movie. I got a phone call from Conor's agency, Paradigm Sports, who, crazy enough, used to be Nolan Carroll's agent way back when me and him. I didn't find this out till later. So it was wild. Nolan's first NFL agent was Paradigm Sports, and before he changed agencies, so they had heard about me from Nolan when me and Nolan started.
Wow.
So fast forward like 7-8 years, and I get a phone call randomly the week of his fight against Floyd Mayweather, Conor, that is.
Yeah, minor fight. No.
Yeah, minor, exactly. And they're like, listen, we're calling from Conor's group, and Conor wants custom shoes, and he has selected 4 artists to draw something that he's gonna pick, and then the winner, he's gonna go with you. Mind you, I never do mock-ups. I've never been a mock-up art. I've kind of just talked to the person, come up with an idea, and just go. So,
right.
But again, it was Conor, so I was like, all right. I remember pulling over my car, I grabbed the computer, I just started drawing stuff, and I submitted like 3 options to him, which I guess is how I got the business, because they literally were like, man, you did this so fast, you do this all the time. And I was like, to be honest with you, this is my first mock-up. And they're like, are you for real? And I was like, yeah, this is my first one. I don't do pre-drafts. I just kind of run. So sure enough, we agreed to something. They send me his boots. There was only one in the world. It was tailored to his foot. So they send me his boots, and I started to get to work on them. And all of a sudden, Thursday, I'm finishing them, then getting ready to ship them overnight so we can have them for Friday, and the flight's on Saturday. And I get a phone call from that same agent. They're like, listen, Mark, like, I hate to tell you this, but Connor's, dropping weight for the weigh-ins tomorrow, and his mindset is completely changed. I'm so sorry. He wants to switch up the whole shoe. I'm just like, well,
Man.
the thing with the shoe was that it wasn't leather. It was like a mesh material, and you can't repaint that. So I was like, look, I can't really repaint this stuff. I'm not gonna have time. They're like, I was like, shipping. They're like, all right, well, shipping's the least of our problem. They're like, look, jump on a flight. It was, mind you, it's Thursday, 4:00 in the afternoon in Miami. They're like, jump on a flight, bring your whole studio. We'll do it in Vegas. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay. And so sure enough, I get on the flight. I'm on a flight 3 hours later with my whole studio packed. I get
That's
there.
insane.
They couldn't even give me a room that first night. So I literally am in the suite of the agent. And they're like, listen, so I get there like at 11 o'clock Vegas time. I start going to work. Everybody goes to sleep. I continue working. I didn't realize what time it was. It was like 9 in the morning. I finished the shoe. Everybody's getting up, comes to see me. They fall in love with the shoe, finally get my own room. And that was how that weekend transpired. Next thing you know, it was, the weigh-ins. I was there for it. Then the fight was amazing. And then after the fight, we all hung out. It was a real cool but crazy stressful weekend.
I can't even imagine. I mean, that is very much like a movie. You don't hear very many clients flying you across the country last minute. So Wildfire's hard to keep up with, though. It seems like you had a meteoric rise. Were you a one-man shop that whole time, catering to all these different athletes?
Yeah. So what happened with me was I started solo, learning everything for about 7 years. And then I first hired an assistant, like a personal assistant, because what was happening was this art thing isn't my career. Like I have multiple companies that I own. So this art thing was, I'd pick up my brush and my airbrush gun at like 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning every day.
Jeez.
So it started, I was like, man, I need a personal assistant. So I started with a personal assistant just to do stupid stuff, but it was stuff that I didn't have time for. And that led to me getting my first artist assistant. And then eventually, like now I have like 4 or 5 assistants.
Incredible.
Where without them, I can't operate because like they do all the stuff, like the tedious, mundane stuff that you really don't want to do. The lacing, the unlacing, the photos, the box. They do all the stuff around it, which allowed me to focus more on what I need to focus on. Now there's about 4 to 5. And typically during football season, that number goes up to 7 to 8 assistants sometimes.
That's one heck of a side hustle, man.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now it's just, it's like I said, it's one of those things that I love what I do. So time flies while I do it, but I can't do it alone. It's just, I have too many clients, thankfully.
I mean, you and I graduated from the same high school. And so as a fellow alumni, I've seen you as this extremely hard worker, very humble. You're not one to name drop. And so it makes me want to like almost name drop for you, the Conor McGregors and Nolan Carrolls that are out there. Because I've seen you do work for like Ray Allen and Drew Brees and all these people. So I just want to be like, wow, how cool is that? But for you, being a sports guy and just being a fan, but then also working with these people from the business side, it's got to be a strange collision of worlds. Are there some projects that your fan side kind of takes over that you kind of geek out, whether it be the Dolphins or the Canes or anything like that? Have you done any projects that like were maybe near and dear to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, 100%. The fan in me always has to be contained because at the end of the day, like you said, I grew up playing and watching sports and admiring some of these people, and like it's just like, I mean, listen, when you get calls and DMs and text messages from the likes of like Marshawn Lynch, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, like people like that, like it's just like there's
Gotta be surreal.
It's one of these things, and then some of them I build like relationships with. It starts obviously business wise, or we meet on set. Like me and Drew, we go back. I got hired for a thing like 3-4 years ago with the USAA to basically fly out to New Orleans and tour the World War II Museum with Drew to make a pair of shoes for My Cause, My Cleats. And that's how we met. And, we hit it off great. He got my shoes. He literally was almost in tears. And ever since then, we became friends, really good friends, and we text. And it's like, to me, it's just like, Drew, like, you know, me and my girl, we literally talk about it. It's like, oh, it's like Drew, and it's like when you say that name in front of somebody else, they're like, wait, Drew Brees, and it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, that's one of our friends, and it's just, it's surreal. And then every time I meet somebody for the first time, it could be like a third string kicker
Mhm.
or the best of the best boxer or whatever. Like, to me, it's still like, wow, like, I can't believe that this person is coming to me to do work for them. Like, they consider me probably just as much as I consider them in their respective field. And it's just like, it's so surreal.
That's amazing. You know, I watch you know, how sneakerheads are on these apps doing like lotteries to try to, you know, try to get these coveted shoes. Everything you do seems to be one of a kind, right? Like one of
Yeah.
one. We're not talking limited edition. We're talking about like
Yeah.
NFT, you know.
No, like I tell people, it's like when I started, I didn't realize what I was doing or saying, and it was like, oh, everything's one of one. But in a way, it makes my job harder. But I think it's why I've been able to grow, like I've been able to grow, because these athletes, you got to keep in mind, again, they're like, athletes are like me and you, except if we had unlimited funds and we just, like, it's one of those things that you play a kid sport and you get paid a king's ransom type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, man, if me and you had bank accounts with a whole bunch of commas, you wouldn't care. Like, it's just you and the guy next to you that has just as much money. You're always trying to outdo each other, and the only way to do that is by personalizing, whether it be your
Mhm.
house, your car, your shoes. So by me having one of one, they love it because, I mean, I've gotten phone calls from teammates where hey, I want the same thing, and I'll be like, no, there's no way I could do that. And
Wow.
and it's just, that's what the athletes, I think, love, is the whole one of one, the uniqueness. They know that nobody in the world, especially their locker room, is gonna have what they have on their feet.
I love it. And I love the logo. I love the brand. Where did the name come from? Souls by Sir.
Oh man, Souls Weiser, what a joke that one was. So, um, how does this work? So going back to when I first started, I didn't have a name. I was just working late night. So one of those nights that I remembered working on shoes so late, it would often happen to me where I'd get so in tune with painting, I'd literally go, I'm gonna order pizza, and I would
Mhm.
call like a local, pizza place, and they wouldn't pick up, and I call another one, and I get so pissed. But then I look at my phone and be like, oh, it's 5 in the morning, so that would make sense. So one of those nights, I get to work the next day at like 8, 9 in the morning, and my mom works with me at one of my companies. So she's on the way to work. So I remember calling her. I'm like, hey mom, can you stop and get breakfast? I'm starving. I need dinner. So she's on the phone with somebody, and when she clicks back over, she literally tells this person, because they're like, oh, who was it? And my mom was like, oh, my mom's like, oh, I don't know how it worked. She said something like, I wanted breakfast, and this person told her, Sir Ginger wants breakfast. And I remember my mom telling me that story because I'm a redhead, and I was like, oh my god, that's hilarious. I'm not gonna call myself Ginger, so then, but I left
No.
Sir, so I was like,
Mhm.
Souls by Sir, and that's how it stuck. That's how it started.
I love it. And I think, you know, when people see that logo, when athletes see that logo, they know what they're looking at, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
it goes on every single shoe, and it's like, I've gotten criticized before from outsiders, but it's like one of those things where, like, I do it so I could know what it's there, and athletes like it because it comes with some sort of, in the cleat world, I guess, it means something to these guys. So I appreciate it, and I put every single shoe I do has my face on it.
it's incredible. It's incredible the brand that you've built. And you know, a lot of times it is that show off trying to one up the other teammate, but you know, other times it's these messages that are powerful and mean a lot, right? Like these heartfelt messages for breast cancer awareness, or you know, repping your home country. I know that Acuna, you know, reps his country, which is going through a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's meaningful what you do, and now you're partnering with a number of other brands. I notice Marcus Lemonis is working with you on something. What are some of the things you got in the works right now?
Yeah, it's wild. So yeah, Marcus as well went to our high school, Christopher Columbus High School,
Mm-hmm.
and he found out about me through something our high school posted up on their social media, and he sent me a DM literally 5 years ago on my birthday,
Incredible.
and it was like, man, I love your work. We got to collab, and for 5 years, me and Marcus went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until he finally we landed on the what he thinks is the next thing in the fashion world, which is basically high-end purses, customizing them, because everybody has a Louis, everybody has a YSL, Chanel bag, but what they don't have is they don't have a one-on-one art piece on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a couple dozen of them as a teaser. Now it's going to get released, I think, in July. And if everything goes according to plan, I think you're gonna see Marcus and me teamed up together on custom high-end purses for women.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. And I know a lot of people that have worked with him. The Grafton family, for one, with Grafton Furniture, and everybody says he's not just an incredibly hard worker, but he's got a gift. He's, you know what I mean, like he knows what he's doing. And there's a reason why he is where he is. So it's wonderful that you're able to work with him. I'm really excited to see what you two are able to put together. You got anything else in the works that you'd want to promote?
I'm trying to think what else we got. So we've got Marcus. We've got what else do I have? I'm trying to. It's just so many projects. Obviously we got the clear football stuff coming through. We've got some.
What about Surface?
Oh yeah, Surface. That's a good. See, look at that, killing me here. Surface and me. So we teamed up. We've been working together for like 4 years now, and it's one of those relationships that I never imagined would grow the way it did. And it started with one project, and they were very impressed, and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown to the point where they asked me to become like a Surface member. And so we did this recent collab, Original by Design, where they picked, I think it was like 6 people across different fields, from famous DJs to ex-athletes to race car drivers. And I somehow got thrown in that mix. And yeah, we're basically, we're midway through telling a story, of my story and how I've gotten to where I've gotten, by being original, etc. We've got a couple cool things coming up in relation to that. And I was actually on the phone earlier today. There's a pretty big contest coming up that I'm going to have on my page because of them, where my followers are going to be able to design their own cleats. And
wow.
And when they do that, we'll be able to pick a winner. And that winner is going to get a whole bunch of cool, free, like Surface stuff, devices, gear, the custom shoes they design. I'm going to make them. And then they're going to be put against some other of the other contestants in there for a chance to win $25K to pursue their passion.
That's incredible. That's going to be quite an undertaking. Working with Microsoft, I heard about the Bill and Melinda Gates divorce. My first question was, who gets Marcus? But yeah, man, I'm really excited to see all these things come from your direction. I definitely want people to be able to follow you and keep up with the stuff that you're doing, because I mean you're really building an enterprise. It's not just a side hustle anymore. 10 years in, I think it's safe to say that this is quite the company. And I'm very proud to have gone to the same high school as so many great alumni, and you are definitely one of them, my friend.
I appreciate.
So where can people follow you?
Well, yeah. First, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. Again, this is still surreal that people actually care about my story, and it's wild. As far as like where you can see my stuff, I always put my stuff on Instagram. That was kind of where I started, and I've been true to it. My social handle on there and on Twitter is Souls by Sir. So it's SOLESBYSIR.
Okay, Souls by Sir, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. And then, I just want to say, man, thanks for coming on. It means a lot. I know your time's limited, but definitely anytime you want to plug anything, you're more than welcome to come back on again. And just let know that we're all following you, rooting for you over here on the Know What's Some podcast, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, man. And again, thank you for having me. And I'm for sure I'll be back on.
Sounds good, man. All right, you have a good one.
You too.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
And that'll do it for another episode of the Know What's Some podcast. My thanks again to our guest, Marcus Rivero. Really appreciate your time, man, and enjoyed the heck out of that interview. We have to have you back on again sometime. Folks, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe or follow button. You're not going to want to miss an episode. Every Tuesday, we drop a new interview on this podcast. They are incredibly interesting guests, and you need to follow us on social media. We're talking about @KnowItSomePod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. Catch our posts, share them, because the bigger this following gets, the greater we have a chance of booking interesting guests week in, week out. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. We couldn't be here without you. We're 15 episodes in, and we're just getting started, folks. I'll see you next week.